So thank you for coming, folks. I appreciate it. My name is Jack Doyle. I'm the director of the Lynn and the Salem DCF offices. And, you know, we got some folks here to sort of talk to you a little about the things that you can do to help support foster care and the foster care placements that the agency sort of needs. And particularly this time in our practice, we have a huge influx in the number of children who are coming into our care, as you can see by that number there. When some of the other speakers will give you some of the more local numbers about what we're dealing with and where we are when they do their spots, so I won't steal their thunder. And then, you know, this was put together by the Community Connections Group and our agency here in Lynn, and we got some programs from the Cape Ann office. So it works out perfect because I represent both Lynn and Cape Ann, so you're definitely in the right place. We're talking a little bit about foster care and how you can help us in foster care, but there are other ways to help the organization and help the children that we have coming into care, and you'll hear more about those opportunities as we move through. So thank you for coming again.
Hope, security, faith, opportunity, and love. This is the family. This is the church. This is home. Thousands of children live in the foster care system. Many, because of their age, are labeled unadoptable. It sounds like an overwhelming task, but just one family from each church could conquer the Goliath of foster care needs. One family. We are the church. We declare that every child will have a family. Every child will be loved. That in our family, God's family, there will always be a place. One church, one family, one purpose.
And then we're going to have the Mully family come up to share their story. They're foster parents that are started doing foster care through their church at Ipswich Presbyterian. So they're going to share a little bit of their journey in foster care. Thank you
for inviting us to speak about one of our favorite subjects, foster care. So I am one of the elders at First Presbyterian Church, North Shore in Ipswich. We also started a satellite campus late last year in Danvers, meeting at the Masonic Temple, just to give you some context. Sue does most of the coordination for our foster care ministry at the church, and she's also heavily involved in the children's and women's ministries at the church. So when you think of the words church and state together in our current culture, it's not usually a positive discussion or association, right? But I think what we have before us here today is an opportunity to make that a positive partnership, one that will benefit kids in crisis and the furthering of the kingdom of God from the church's perspective. And furthermore, you know, we don't often in the church have the opportunity to engage in a ministry that is basically funded by the government. There are very few of those around, and it's just an incredible opportunity for us as the church, I think. And, you know, it's a great thing. And beyond that, the government's not going to put money in your church coffers, obviously, directly. But they do have a daily stipend to support foster parents. And also, if you choose to go through the process of fostering, adoption through fostering, I believe most of your expenses are covered there too. So I think this is a really great opportunity from that perspective. And you put all these things together, and the idea of one church, one child is really doable. It's attainable. It's a no-brainer in my mind. So I'm going to give you a little bit of history of how we as a family became involved in foster care and how our church did, and then Sue's going to give you more of the state of the foster care ministry in our church today. So about 10 years ago, Sue and I were praying to God for a ministry for our family, something that was long-term, something that would let us reach outside of the church into our community. In November of 2007, our church held its annual missions conference, and the speaker was a pastor from Nairobi Chapel in Kenya. He was also happened to be a foster parent. And one of the last things he said to us went something like this. He said, "You Americans, you have so many resources at your disposal than you realize you do. Is what I'd like you to do is to go home to your homes today, walk through and look into each room, and if you see a bed, an empty bed, consider putting someone in that, like a foster child." So Sue and I did that. We went home. And we didn't actually see an empty bed, but we said, we can put one right there. So that was the beginning for us. And in the weeks that followed that, it seemed like everywhere we went and everywhere we looked, it was like foster care was slapping us in the face. You know, we listened to the radio, there was something on foster care on NPR, or watching TV, CNN had a segment on foster care, or meeting foster parents in random places, and it was just always in front of us. And at that point, we felt like we had our answer to that prayer, that was the ministry for us. So we started moving in that direction. Soon after that, two of the members of our church who also happened to be employees of the department, Amy Nias, who is with us today, and Hillary Cannell, decided to explore the possibility of a foster care ministry within our church. So they held an information session. They invited representatives of the state and some current foster parents. We had about 40 people attend that. It was very well received. And as a result of that, Sue and I decided to attend the MAP training, foster parent training, and two other families at the time, I think, decided soon thereafter, including the pastor and his wife. So in September 2008, we welcomed our first foster child into our home. She was 12 days old. We were 46. And about 10 years away from diapers and waking up in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. to scream. So it was kind of a fun transition for us. And since then, we've had many other foster children in our home, and probably about 20 placements or so in that time frame in families in our church. Right now, we have 5 foster children placed in our church. And before I turn it over to Sue, I just wanted to make one comment about how well it's been received by our church. Our church has really embraced each of these kids as they've come into the church. And the kids absolutely love church. I know it's hard to believe, right? But they, almost without exception, these kids love to come to church. They love to come to church on Sunday. They love to come to the activities during the week. It's just been an overwhelmingly positive experience for our church. And I think it's a natural place to nurture foster care, the church. So I'll turn it over to Sue to tell you more about what's going on today.
As Rich said, there are 5 kids in our church right now. We have 5 families that are MAP trained and have taken kids in or are taking kids right now. And 2 of those families are ready to adopt through the foster care system. They are just waiting for the right kids to come along and that opportunity, and they are ready to go with that. But in addition to those smaller numbers of people, we have over a dozen families that are involved in supporting our foster families. And these are people that have a heart for foster care and adoption, but just for some reason at this point in their life aren't ready to actually jump in, with both feet and get involved. So they are the support network for those of us that are doing foster care. And so the first thing we did was make an email distribution list of these families, and we have found them to be an incredible support system for us. Because as many of you know, the warning that there's a child arriving in your home could be an hour, could be 2 hours before that little person is standing at your front door. And when they arrive, sadly, they usually arrive with a plastic market basket bag, and that holds their belongings, that little bag. And so this email list of people from our church are the ones who bring clothes to our doorstep. Within a couple of hours, I can have, whatever I would need to put on the backs of these kids for clothes. They bring furniture, they'll bring toys, they bring us meals the first few days that we have a new placement, and they provide babysitting for the families that are doing foster care in our home. In addition to that support team, we've had a chance to meet with prospective families in our church. If people are interested and they have questions and they want to know what would it look like for us to do foster care, we've had the chance to get together with them and just answer their questions or have them in our home to see what it looks like to be 55 years old and have a 3-year-old running around your house. They see now what that looks like. And the back pain medicine that we take and, things like that. But that's been great. We also have met together to pray on occasion. If there is particularly concerning, if there is a child going back to a birth parent and we're really concerned for their safety, or if you have a child in your home and their behavioral issues are very serious or they're having emotional problems, we get together and are able to pray for one another in that way. And another thing that we've found is that caring for kids in your home can be isolating. Your family looks really different from some of the other families that you're around. And not everyone understands, why you can't go out at the drop of a hat, or just that things are different in your home. And so when you have a couple of families together in a church that are fostering, you have a support network. You have people that you can meet with or talk to that understand what your life is like. And I feel like that support system enables people to stay the course longer in foster care and not get burnt out as quickly, because you have people around you that know what it is that you're doing, and they can share your joys and your struggles as you're doing that. So this past November, we started up more of a formal support group, and we meet in Beverly once a month and have speakers and are just enjoying about a dozen women that come each month and get together to talk about foster care and adoption. Just last week, we had a family come to us and say, could we come alongside of you and kind of be like an aunt and an uncle for your kid? So we're kind of exploring the idea of pairing each foster family in our church with another family who would be that family to come alongside of them and to help them. So that's kind of in the works at this point. But caring for these kids is not easy, and it's not always comfortable, but it's a very meaningful and rewarding thing. It's been that for our family and for our church. It's really expanded our world, both for our kids and for the people that are in our church community. All of the world is not safe, suburban, little North Shore. There are a lot bigger things going on, and that's been great for our kids to see, that there are real people that really have much more serious problems than I lost my iPhone, or, my boots aren't quite right, or something like that. It's also taught us to trust God for the details, because you never know how long a kid's going to be with you. You don't know what problems they're going to bring into your family, and it's really taught us to trust. It's just been a blessing, as Rich said, to see these kids grow and thrive in our church community. And I just want to close with a picture, or a story actually for you, of a little girl named Nina, who was with us for 2 years. And Nina, as Rich said, like all of our kids, Sunday was her favorite day of the week. She could not wait to get to church, to be with her friends and see her teachers and the people that she knew. And our church just really embraced Nina. People babysat for her, came to her birthday party. They were just very special to her. So on this last Sunday, before Nina was about to be adopted by somebody outside the church about an hour away, we had planned a little going away party for her, and I was talking about it in the back of the church with someone as the prelude was playing. So it's quiet music, everyone's supposed to be focused, and I lost track of Nina. I had no idea where she was. She was about 4 maybe at that point. And when I finally looked around, there was Nina going up and down the aisles of the church during the prelude, just waving. She would turn from side to her adoring fans and just wave at everyone. And she just kind of made the circle up and down all of the aisles of the church. And for me, that was just a picture of how the church has really embraced these needy kids. And it made their lives richer, and it's really made our lives richer as well for the experience. So that is what I wanted to say. Thanks.
Hello. So some of you know my story. I'm Michelle Fira. I am, excuse me, I've been sick. I presently an area clinical manager. It's a new position for me. Thank you, Jack. Over at the DCF office in Lynn. I think the reason that I was asked to speak is because when people look at me, they don't really realize my history, and that is that I was once a foster child. So I'll give you a little bit of our story, and I say our story because it's my brother's as well. So there's 3 of us. I'm 11, my brother is 13, and my younger brother is just 5. When he was born, my younger brother was born, our father left us, and my mother, who was very mentally ill, was unable to care for us, but still managed for 5 years. And in that time, we moved from suburbia, or the outskirts of Lawrence, Methuen, New Hampshire, to Lawrence, which is really where I call my home, where I grew up. And so for 6 years living in Lawrence, we lived in many different homes, many different apartments. We had many nights of no food, often having to kind of fend for our own, particularly for my 5-year-old brother, who at the time was an infant, when you think about it, when we were really struggling. And my mother had her real struggles. She has since passed away. And so at 11, we had a really dear friend, my mother's best friend, who decided she was kind of done with seeing our life the way it was going, and contacted the Department of Public Welfare, I believe it was at the time, and in collusion with my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, my mother's mother, who was not a well woman either, decided that we needed to really be separated and go into care. And so that's when my journey really started, in regards to, I think it started when I was younger, 0 to 11. But at 11, things really changed. Life significantly changed. I was known as a runaway. The funny story about that is I always tell people, at 10, I ran away during the 78 blizzard. People are like, what? I'm like, yeah, I did. So I had some spirit back then, and some resiliency, as people would say. At the time, I only took myself when I ran away during the 78 blizzard. I wasn't all that smart, though, because I ran away without a jacket. And I really had no place to go. But I knew I was tired. I was tired of our life and what was happening to us. I ended up going to live with my father for a short amount of time, and that didn't really work out well. So I went back to my mother, and then that fall, in I think it was 78, fall of 78, we all got separated and went into foster care. At that time, the Department of Children and Family Services was very different. I had a lot of strengths. I had one really good worker, and in fact got to meet the person that did my investigation. I worked for him at DCF in Lowell for a short amount of time. I didn't know that. He didn't tell me that until about 10 years later. He goes, yeah, I did your removal. I'm like, how did you remember that? Must have been the last name. But so at that time, like now, there was not a lot of foster homes. My brothers and I were placed in Billerica. I was placed with my younger brother, which was wonderful because I really had been his caretaker. And then my older brother was placed in this wonderful foster home that I was very envious. He lucked out in the draw on that one, and stayed there. He stayed there for 2 years. I again ran away because the foster home wasn't all that supportive of my younger brother and I. But this time I was smart. I took my younger brother with me. So when they called our social worker, Joe, because I, again, wasn't that smart that I knew where I was going, I ran away to around the street and called a family member. They then decided that I was classified as a runaway and that I couldn't really be with my siblings. And so I was placed in a foster home in Newburyport. Now going from Lawrence to Newburyport was pretty shocking for me. And I think that year, my 5th grade, I was in 3 different schools in a matter of 6 weeks. So it was pretty hard. But I think what the message that I want you to hear today is not all of that tragedy, not all of that trauma, is growing up in foster care. I think that that's really what helped define who I am today. My foster home, the woman that took me in, it was really, I still will never forget the day that I was placed. My social worker did a phenomenal job. They made sure I knew what to call the foster mother. Did I want to call her Mom? Did I want to call her Lucy? And our, food was always an issue because we didn't have any. And then when we went our first foster home, we weren't allowed to eat unless we were, given permission to eat. So they, they explained how I could eat. If I needed to go to the bathroom, where was the bathroom? If I wanted to take a shower, where were the towels? What were the expectations of making my bed? Things that I just, I didn't grow up making my bed. I didn't even have a bed. I shared a bed with my brother. So that transition, I think, really cemented for me the successes that I was going to have in that home. It was not an easy life living in that home. My foster mother eventually adopted me, but she had some significant trauma herself. And I'll tell you, the first 6 months of living in that foster home was probably, I never smiled so much in my life. And some of you who are used to smiling, your face is used to it. But if you're not used to smiling, and you smile a lot, it hurts. Because I always remember, my face really hurts. Why is that? It was wonderful. But then 6 months into the placement, her son passed away. Her son lived with us, and he was 38, and he had died of a heart attack in the home. And she dramatically changed after that, and not her fault. But I was determined that I wasn't going to leave again. I was going to make this work, and it worked. It worked for a long time. She eventually adopted me. But I think what made the difference, and I think this is what speaks to the church, the sense of community that I heard in what you said, is I wasn't just, from 11 to now as an adult. And, there was a lot of rocky roads in there. So I have a 20-year-old son and a 17-year-old son, and they both want me to write a book. I'm not going to do that. But, I think what really speaks to me is the sense of community. So for what Newburyport, the community in Newburyport did for me is what really made me who I am today. I had my foster mother. The first day that I was placed, I met the neighbors. They came over and gave me a gift and a camera. And I never knew what a camera was. I knew, but I never had one. And they were foster parents. So they introduced me to their foster children. She was the bus driver, so she made sure I got to school every day because my foster mother didn't drive. She didn't have a car. Because again, I went to Newburyport, but we were actually probably very, very poor to Newburyport standards. We didn't have a car. We didn't have a lot of those extreme, vacations or, it was just, it was a simple life. It was a wonderful life, if you can really compare it to what I had before. So that my neighborhood supported me. People would hire me to mow their lawn so that I would have money. You know, people would give us rides to the grocery store because we didn't have a car. People would give me rides to get my every foster child gets a clothing allotment. We didn't have a car, so where was I going to go for clothing? They would give us rides to the store to that. I'd go to school. I never was treated differently in school, but everybody knew that I was a foster child. I mean, you can't hide it when you're coming in mid-year and you have social workers calling. But the teachers really, my 5th grade teachers, my 6th grade teachers, my 6th grade teacher, my math teacher hired me to babysit when I was in high school, so he stayed in contact with me. My softball coach, I had never done sports, before, and when I moved to this foster home, my foster mother signed me up for sports. My coach was our local pharmacist. He would pay for my uniform, pay for my pictures. Things I just didn't realize, because we didn't have the money to do that. And my foster mother she was older. She was in her 60s when I went there at the age of 11. So it was really a sense of community that made the big difference for me. When I was in high school, I was living on my own at this point, and I had people coming to me, teachers coming to me, do you need a place to stay? Do you need clothes? Do you need groceries? So it was really a sense of community. One of the things that I'm most grateful about my being in placement is it allowed me to finish my sacraments in my church. I would never have had that opportunity growing up with my mother. And so when I got married, my husband's family is a very devout Catholic, and we were able to get married in a church with a full Mass. That would not have been possible, I believe, if I hadn't been where I was. I went off to college. I was, ranked fairly high in my senior year. I had people helping me, decide where I should go to college, helping me apply for scholarships, because I had nobody. But it was the school that really, the teachers that really models for me, my neighbors, my friends, parents. So that's the sense of community that I think this is about. Is how as a church and how as neighbors, as friends, we can build a community for the kids that are in foster care. One of the things that I want you to take away for those that are thinking of bringing this back to your church, is it's not just about the 3-year-olds and the 5-year-olds. I was 11, when I went into foster care. My older brother was 13. And, everybody wants the 5-year-old, right? But I think I turned out pretty good, considering I went in as an adolescent or a pre-adolescent, and it was work. I think if you were to ask my foster brother, who at one point came to me and said, "You need to move out," because my mother and I weren't getting along, I said, "I'm not moving out." And 5 years later, he came and apologized because he said, "Yeah, you're right. You shouldn't have moved out." And I didn't move out, but it wasn't easy for them. It wasn't easy for me. But we need foster homes for adolescents. They need a sense of community. We're I think, in a desperate need for adolescents. So, I could go on about my journey. I'm very thankful for growing up in the system. I do think I do offer a unique perspective, because not only did I grow up in the system, but I also work for DCF now. And I think that's a unique opportunity and lens that I offer the Lynn office. So thank you.
So I'm Kim Wadsworth. I'm the Family Resource Supervisor in Lynn, and I'm here to kind of talk to you about the next steps and where do we go from here. You'll see on the screen we have over 9,000 children in placement in Massachusetts. That is certainly increased over the last 6 months. We have over 300 in foster care in Lynn and over 150 in the Cape Ann area offices. I think what's also really significant is that over 70, the children are placed out of their school district by over 70%. So most kids are having to leave their school and their comfort place, so their teachers that they have known.